Hello, Startup Vision. My name is Max de Esteban. I'm an artist based in Barcelona. My main topic is the human and the technology, basically, in general terms. And if it not were because it's closed, you could see my work now at the Paume in Paris. And hopefully you will be able to see it in the Yokohama Triennial of Contemporary Art in Japan this July, but we'll see what happens then.
Hello, Max. Thank you for being with us on Startup Vision TV. You are a world-renowned art photographer and video artist, but you are also a distinguished economist, and you have an MBA from Stanford, and you have a PhD in business and finance. So what we want to know today is your thoughts about what the world is going through right now.
Okay, obviously it's a bit early to say anything because the uncertainty is the nature of our situation. But after 100,000 dead people and 2 million infected, I think we can start seeing certain trends that will define a before and after this pandemic. Thinking it a bit through, I would say that the most, at least for me, relevant fact is that I think it will mark the end of an ideology that has been the predominant in the world since 1989. And this is what I would call it, the neoliberal individualism. This type of ideology was based on three assumptions, three tenets. The first one was what Margaret Thatcher defined very well in a quite infamous quote, which was, "There is no society, but only individuals." This is the first tenet of this neoliberal individualism. I think that this is not what we are seeing in the world today. The healthcare community is risking their lives to save that of ours. They're putting their lives at risk to save society and the community. And this is only possible if people believe that there are things that are larger than themselves, that there's a common destiny that we have to preserve. So I think that this is the first fact that we are today confronting, the generosity and solidarity of a large number of individuals that are putting their life into risks in the benefit of others. The second tenet of this ideology was what it was called meritocracy. And the idea was that you have what you deserve. If you are ill or you are poor, it's your own fault. It's either because you don't work enough, or you don't take care of yourself, or you don't exercise enough. And we all know today that this is not true, simply not true. It's well researched that the number one predictor of an individual's future wealth is the zip code where he or she was born. And this does not sound too meritocratic to me. So the second tenet today, nobody really believes that that's the case. The third principle of this ideology is to keep the state to the minimum. Basically, you individual are there to fight your own life, and you should not expect any help from the state or the governments. Well, this is probably the most cynical of the three arguments, because we all know what happened in 2008, where billions of dollars were from the taxpayers were poured into financial institutions, the American banks, the French banks, the German banks, the Spanish banks, at the expense of the citizens. Today, I think there's no question that a strong and well-funded state is fundamental for the protection of the citizens. So I would say, as a summary, that this ideology where, it was the heyday of the individualism of I'm alone to fight against everybody else, it's gone. After the 2008 crisis and the 2020 crisis, nobody with right mind can believe those principles anymore. I think this is a very substantial philosophical change in our society.
And what lessons do you think we can learn from this crisis, and what impact do you think it will have in the future?
The current crisis shows the absolute need to correct the international tax law. It is unthinkable in today's environment that the wealthiest people in the world and the most important companies in the world, their companies, the Googles, Amazons of the world, pay no taxes. They pay no taxes. And this becomes outrageous because these companies would not be able to function if it not were because the states finance the education of their populations, provide for the infrastructures that make them work, provides for the legal frameworks that also allows them to work. They are the prime responsible for the lack of funding of the global healthcare system. And I think that one of the consequences is that states, out of simple need, will have to rethink the corporate international tax law deeply and rigorously.
So we talked about it, this terrible pandemic stopped the economy of so many countries in the world. You talked about the government that should be including more maybe in the economic life, in the life of everybody, especially about health. How do you think those governments should act differently for the next pandemic, let's say?
Well, again, my big concern, my really deep concern about what's going on, aside of the current health crisis, is that the dynamics of many things can change for the good or for the bad. For example, let's think about digitalization and the data economy. I have no question that the coronavirus will accelerate the process of the virtual economy, digitalization, and data. And you can see it. Which is a business that is really thriving today? It's Amazon. Amazon is hiring 100,000 people more during this environment, while everybody else is firing people. This, if handled correctly by the governments, this can be very good. But if mishandled, it can have really tough consequences on the citizens. Think about it. Confinement has been an extraordinary social experiment, an unthinkable social experiment. Suddenly, everybody in the world is asked to go home and try to work from there. Well, working from home could be a neat idea, depends on how, but has three components that makes it very concerning. Because there's nothing better for the control of the citizens and the reduction of their civil rights than three elements. One is precarity, the other one is isolation, and the third one is surveillance. Let's think about it. Think about precarity. I'm alone at home. I have to work because I need to work. And my rate is say $4 an hour. I mean, this is the 1 hour contracts that are being spread in our societies. Well, it's for sure that there's going to be somebody else ready to work for not for 4 but for 3 out of need. And so basically, precarity, what does is the fight for small bits of work between the citizens. Then you add to that the isolating part. We are at home. We don't have colleagues, work colleagues. Isolation kills solidarity and the sense of community. I'm alone now. I have no friends, no colleagues, and I have to fight for my hour of work. And thirdly, you have surveillance, the surveillance mechanisms that are well talked about. my employer will know what I do every day, the government will know what I do every day, and the corporations will know what I do. This exacerbates the effects of precarity and isolation. So what the resulting effect of that is an equal balance of power between corporations and the citizens. If we allow this to happen, we will be at the mercy of larger powers with no democratic control of our lives.
Yeah, it's a total change of paradigm. Definitely, you know, this pandemic is going to change everything. Thank you so much, Max, for spending this time with us and giving us your thoughts about all this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.